Alright folks, lean in close, turn off the lights, and listen very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you isn't some cheap ghost story pulled from a dusty book. This is real, every word of it. Sent to us by a woman named Clara, who still can't sleep without the lights on. And if you think your walls have ever felt alive, wait until you hear what happened to her. Clara was 24 when she signed the lease for apartment 3B in the old Hathorne Building. 22 floors of crumbling brick, stained glass windows that wept condensation, and a history longer than any of the tenants cared to remember. The landlord called it a charming vintage gem. The neighbors called it the one that shouldn't exist. Clara just needed a place cheap enough to survive on her waitress wages. The first night, she didn't notice anything wrong. Just the usual city hum, the distant wail of sirens, the creak of old plumbing. But by the third night, that's when the whispers started, not loud, not dramatic, just faint. Like breath against her ear when she sat on the floor folding laundry, or the rustle of silk when she brushed her teeth. She'd spin around, nothing, just empty air, just shadows pooling in the corners of her rented studio. She told herself it was the pipes, or the wind sneaking through the cracked windows, but deep down she felt it, a pressure, a presence that watched, that waited. Week 2, the whispers became voices, not words, just syllables, moans. Guttural wet sounds that made Clara's teeth ache. They came from the walls, from the ceiling, even from the floorboards beneath her feet. She'd wake up gasping, certain someone had climbed into bed with her, but the sheets were cold, the room freezing like the thermal had been sucked straight out. She'd light candles, burn sage, play holy hymns on her phone, nothing stopped it. Then the smell started, not mold, not rot, something sweet, cloying. Like decayed roses drenched in vanilla. It hung thick in the air, especially at 3 a.m., the witching hour her grandma would have called it. Clara just called it the hour she started praying. One night, she stood in the bathroom, staring into the cracked mirror. And for the first time she saw something else. Behind her, barely visible in the reflection, a shape, tall, emaciated, its fingers long, too long, dragging along the wall like spiders, its face, a hollowed mask, skin stretched tight over bone. And its eyes black, bottomless. Clara screamed. The mirror shattered, glass exploded across the tile, but when she turned, the room was empty. You ever felt eyes on you when you're alone? Like something standing just behind your shoulder, breathing down your neck. That's Clara's new normal, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. By week 4, Clara couldn't take it anymore. She called the landlord. He laughed. Old buildings make noises, he said. You're imagining things. She called the police. They sent an officer. He walked through the apartment, flipped on every light, checked every closet. Nothing here, he said. Maybe you should see a doctor. But that night, the night the officer left, that's when the real terror began. It started with a drip, a slow, rhythmic blink, blink, blink coming from the ceiling above her bed. Clara stood up, flashlight in hand. She aimed the beam at the water stain, and froze. There, smeared across the plaster, was a wet, glistening handprint, dark red, almost black, and it was oozing. She backing away, her foot hit something soft. She looked down. A shallow puddle on the floor, and floating in it, a single, perfectly formed human eye. Clara screamed. She grabbed her bag, threw in clothes, her phone, anything that wasn't nailed down. She didn't even turn off the lights. She just ran. Down the hall, past closed doors that rattled like skeletons shaking off their graves, down the creaking stairwell, out the broken front door. But she made one mistake. She looked back, just once, to see if whatever was chasing her had followed. And that's when she saw it. Standing in the doorway of her apartment, silhouetted against the yellow glow of the streetlight outside, was a figure, not a shadow, not a monster, something else. Its body seemed to flicker, like static on an old TV. Its limbs elongated, then snapped back. Its mouth wide, lipless, stretched into a grin so big it split its face in half, and it was smiling. Clara didn't sleep for 3 days, not after what she saw. Not after what she felt crawling under her skin long after she fled. Because here's the thing, folks, Clara moved into a tiny studio across town. No history. No character, just white walls and fluorescent lights. She thought she'd left the Hathorne behind. She was wrong. the whispers started again, quieter this time, more patient. She'd hear them when she brushed her teeth, when she sat in traffic, when she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, praying for sleep. And then the smells, that sweet, rotting fragrance, it wasn't confined to the old building anymore. It followed her, clung to her clothes, lingered in her hair. She went to a priest, a psychic, a therapist. None of them helped. Some said she was haunted by grief, by guilt, by a broken mind. But Clara knew better. It wasn't her mind, it was the walls. Because one night, as she stood in her new shower, letting the water scald her skin, she felt it. A cold hand sliding up her leg, and a voice whispered, intimate, right in her ears said, "You can't leave us." Clara hasn't been back to the Hathorne, not since that night, but she knows it's still there, waiting, because haunting isn't about places, it's about attachment, and some things, some presences, they don't let go. They cling, they follow, they grow. Now every time she passes an old building, every time she hears a drip in a ceiling, every time the air turns sweet and cloying, she feels it, the pressure, the watching. The slow, inevitable creep of something that wants nothing more than to be heard. So, what do you think? Is Clara truly alone? Or is something far older and far darker using her as an instrument? We're always listening, always hunting the darkness, because the walls, they always have secrets.